Noob D&D Dad here. We're going to talk about session number 32 of my son's campaign in the Dragon of Icespire Peak, which has been heavily homebrewed. Also, it kind of forces you to homebrew it if somebody gets bit by a wererat. So if you remember in the last encounter, they had a werewolf scary horror episode in the gypsy camp. So they took a long rest in the town, in the lady's house that her husband was a werewolf, and they rescued him momentarily, and she nursed them back to health. And I think they still had loggers t-shirts. Sorry, not a logger t-shirt. They had lumberjack shirts, like the black and red plaid ones. I think that they got at the loggers camp because, like I said, I like to have their clothes just get totally destroyed in the encounters, and they had some intense encounters. So they're basically in crispy new loggers shirts. And Tybor Wester, whom they had to bring supplies to at the loggers camp, has donated all of his supplies to this family that helped them out. So it's kind of cool that things that start out in the Essentials Kit book, you can just weave into the story. So like they're staying at this NPC's house that isn't even in the book, but it just made sense. Like the progression of events made sense because somebody got bit and turned into a lycanthrope, and which the book tells you will happen. And so then it's like, okay, well, it's the full moon, so I have to take control of this character. But it's cool because then they take the supplies to Tybor Wester, and you can take anything in the story and make it like a plot point or like a story beat. And so I just think it's cool. Like instead of just forgetting the supplies that they brought to Tybor, they've been carrying them with them, and Tybor gives them to the family. So I just thought it was cool that you can, even though if you go way off script, you can still bring things in from the book. So I've been, as a totally noob DM, DMing for my son and also DMing for a group of Army vets. I've really been enjoying the D&D written campaigns where it's like a starting point, because a lot of people like to homebrew everything, and that's kind of intimidating to me. And so I really like the written things so that I can be inspired by them, and then I can just be creative and add anything I want. What do you prefer between like company written, or I guess people written stories, or just total homebrew? All right, so my friend at this point is eager to get back on the road and kind of get back to the story, right? But my son wants to go explore around in this creepy forest. And so he starts exploring, and I think my friend goes with him, but the cousin stays behind. And then I decide that this is a perfect time to use a random encounter from the Dungeon Master's Guide. So at this point, we're still on the 2014 Dungeon Master's Guide. And so we go to page 86, and we have a forest random encounter, and we get the 3. So we end up with 7 gnolls and a pack lord, so 8 of these baddies. So basically how it goes is they start shooting, the pack lord, or the gnolls start shooting arrows at our 2 heroes that have ventured into the forest, because the cousin has stayed behind to, I can't remember what he's doing, repairing himself or the wagon or something, but he decided to stay behind. He doesn't want to go into this creepy forest. And my friend is a little bit annoyed, and I found out more after the session how annoyed he was. But so these gnolls are attacking them, and it's not going very well, and I'm wondering why. And my friend's character, the sorcerer, is like really getting like beat pretty bad. And if you remember, I always roll randomly to see, like in a given situation, if the bad guy would attack any of the characters, I just roll randomly so that I'm not biased. But my friend was actually getting beat pretty bad, and I was like, is he really out of like spell stuff? Like what's going on? Like it turns out he was holding back a little bit to teach my son a lesson on like going too far off, not script, but just like when there's people. So the centaur guy, Xanth, is that his name? He is waiting for them. And so my friend's annoyed. He's like, hey, this person's waiting for us. Like, we need to go. And so I guess to teach him a lesson from going off script or just like ignoring some pressing thing, he wasn't, I guess, trying as hard in the combat. And so it actually made for quite a difficult combat, to the point where the fighter, the cousin, needed to come rescue them. And I can't remember if they had like sending stones or what, but somehow, or maybe one of them screamed really loud when they got hit by an arrow or got bit or something. So anyway, he comes running, and so now I'm having to track the 2 people close to the battle and then someone else running up to join the battle. And range is very important, so we're actually counting feet and turns and everything. And then he finally gets into range and just starts like sniping these gnolls. And as a noob, it was also fun to have an excuse to use the monster manual to dig up the gnoll, because that's not in the Essentials Kit book. So I had fun running the random encounter, and I think my friend was annoyed, but I had fun for the chance to like basically go off script, go to the DM guide, flip to a random encounter. And at this point, I have not read through the DM guide, and I didn't really know my way around it too much because I'd just been using Treasure or whatever. Honestly, because you can really just use the Essentials Kit book. So I liked the chance to have all those books next to me, and for my son to be like, I'm going into the forest, and be like, yes, I'm gonna like hurry and flip through and find a forest encounter. So I, as a DM, I actually really liked this little momentarily off script moment. However, there's consequences, because Xanth was only gonna wait a short time, and so when they do make it there, I'm not going to have him be there anymore. So this is a little spoiler alert for the future, but when they do make it to Falcon's hunting lodge, Xanth will have had to leave. He couldn't stay anymore. And so that's kind of like a consequence. And where I'm kind of making this up as I go, I don't know how well it would have gone if Xanth was there, but I decided to make like a distinct consequence for going off script and for making Xanth wait, is that he had to go. So then he wasn't with them anymore, and I think he had been like a powerful presence with them. So what consequences has your DM, or do you as a DM, have you done to players that are kind of like harmless like that, where Xanth, or an NPC decides to just leave or something like that? Not to like teach them a lesson because you're like getting them in trouble or whatever, but to help them have consequences to their social interactions. I love to hear your examples and your stories, and I also love your suggestions on how to do stuff. So let me know what consequences you've experienced that are harmless in D&D. Well, that's it for session 32 in my campaign with my son that I'm DMing for, and I'm having so much fun, and thanks for watching these, and I love your suggestions, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.